This is not a story about death. It's a story about what happens after someone dies, when they refuse to let go. In a moment, you'll hear about a woman named Hannah Miller, a quiet woman, a normal woman, someone you could pass on the street without noticing. But for years, Hannah was never alone, even when the room was empty, even when the lights were on, even when she crossed oceans trying to escape. There was someone with her, someone who didn't breathe, didn't sleep, didn't age, someone who believed she belonged to him, not because of love, but because she was there when he died. What you're about to hear is not a legend passed down through generations. It's not an old folk tale. It's not something buried safely in the past. This happened recently, and it didn't end the way you think it did. Because the most terrifying thing about this story is not the ghost, it's the bond. The kind of bond that forms in a single moment of kindness and turns into a lifetime of possession. As you listen, pay attention to how often Hannah tries to leave, how many times she runs, how far she goes. And notice this: no matter where she is, no matter how far she travels, he always knows. So if at any point while listening, you feel a sudden chill, if you feel the urge to look over your shoulder, if you feel like the silence around you has changed, don't panic. Just remember, some stories don't want to be told. They want to be remembered. This is the story of Hannah Miller, and once you hear it, something might remember you too. In 2017, I shared an office with a woman named Hannah Miller. At first glance, there was nothing about her that seemed threatening or unusual. She wasn't pale in a dramatic way. She didn't dress oddly. She didn't smell of incense or mutter to herself like someone out of a ghost story. But from the very first day she joined our company, the room felt different. Hannah came from a small, isolated town in the southern United States. One of those places people rarely leave, and when they do, they never quite escape it. She never spoke about her hometown, but there was something in her posture that suggested she carried it with her, like a weight tied to her spine. She was quiet, not the kind of quiet that comes from shyness, but the kind that feels practiced, controlled, as if silence were a rule she had learned to obey. When our manager introduced her to the team, Hannah nodded politely. Her smile was brief, careful, like it had been measured in advance and approved for use. She didn't look at anyone for too long, especially not men. Her eyes were always lowered or fixed on some distant point behind us, as if she were listening to something we couldn't hear. In meetings, Hannah spoke only when spoken to. Her answers were short, precise, professional. No small talk, no jokes, no complaints. During lunch breaks, while the rest of us gathered around tables and shared stories about relationships, weekend plans, and personal disasters, Hannah ate alone, always the same seat, always facing the wall. Sometimes, I noticed she didn't eat at all. She would just sit there with her hands folded in her lap, staring at nothing, waiting. Waiting for what, I couldn't tell. Our team was close-knit. We worked hard, and we drank hard. Barbecues, backyard parties, beer nights, weekend picnics, those were how we stayed sane. We invited Hannah every time, and every time she refused. Her excuses were polite, rehearsed. "I'm tired tonight. I have something to take care of. Maybe next time." But there was always something else in her voice. Not disinterest. Fear. After months of invitations, Hannah finally agreed to come to a weekend barbecue. I remember that evening clearly. The sun was setting. Smoke rose from the grill. Music played softly. Laughter carried across the yard. Hannah arrived late. She stood at the edge of the gathering for several seconds, unmoving, as if crossing an invisible line required courage. When she finally stepped forward, her shoulders were tense. Her hands clenched around the straps of her bag. She chose a chair far from the fire, far from the lights, half hidden in shadow. She smiled when people greeted her, but it was the kind of smile people use when they want to be left alone. As the night went on, something about her behavior became impossible to ignore. Whenever someone mentioned dating, marriage, or intimacy, Hannah's body reacted. Her fingers tightened. Her breathing became shallow. Once, when a coworker laughed about a bad breakup, Hannah flinched as if struck. And every so often, she glanced behind her, not casually, not nervously, but sharply, suddenly, like someone had leaned close and whispered her name. Someone joked that Hannah looked like she'd seen a ghost. She didn't laugh. She stood up, excused herself, and left early. No explanation. Just gone. The whispers started not long after that. "She's unstable. She's traumatized. I heard she had a breakdown back home." People speculated. People guessed. But no one asked her directly, because something about Hannah discouraged questions. It felt intrusive, like knocking on a door you instinctively knew should stay closed. Later that year, our team attended a house party hosted by a colleague who lived on the outskirts of town. The house stood alone, surrounded by trees, far from neighbors and streetlights. At night, the darkness pressed close, thick and watchful. That was where I met him. The older man. He was introduced as a spiritual medium, a friend of the host. Thin, quiet, with eyes that seemed too sharp, too awake, like they were focused on something just beyond the visible world. At first, he said nothing. He simply stood near the wall, watching. And then Hannah arrived. The moment she stepped into the house, the man's posture changed. His head lifted slowly. His gaze locked onto her. He didn't smile. He didn't blink. He just stared. Hannah felt it immediately. Her steps slowed. Her face drained of color. She avoided looking in his direction, but her body leaned subtly away from him, like a compass reacting to a magnetic force. Throughout the evening, the man never took his eyes off her. Not while people laughed. Not while music played. Not even while others spoke directly to him. It was as if Hannah were the only person in the room who truly existed. Halfway through the night, the lights flickered. Just once. Enough to silence the conversation. The medium stood up. No one asked him to speak. He simply did. "There is someone standing with her," he said quietly. The room went still. He raised one thin finger and pointed directly at Hannah. "There is a man," he continued, his voice low and steady. "A man who does not belong among the living." Hannah froze. "He follows her," the medium said. "He touches her. He lies with her." A sharp gasp escaped Hannah's throat. The medium's eyes darkened. "He is jealous," he said. "He does not want her to love anyone else. He does not want her to belong to anyone else." Hannah screamed. Not loudly, not dramatically. It was a broken sound, raw, torn from somewhere deep inside her chest. She collapsed to the floor, shaking, sobbing uncontrollably. "It's true," she cried. "It's all true." No one moved. No one knew what to do. And standing behind Hannah, though none of us could see it, something listened. After Hannah collapsed on the floor that night, no one knew what to say. The music had stopped. The laughter had died. The house felt suddenly too small, as if something unseen had stepped closer. The spiritual medium lowered his hand. "There is no need to ask her," he said quietly. "She already knows." Hannah's breathing was ragged. Her fingers dug into the carpet as if she were holding on to the ground itself, afraid she might fall through. "It started years ago," she whispered. "Before I came here. Before any of you knew my name." And then, she told us. In 2014, Hannah was still living near her hometown in the southern United States. The kind of place where roads stretch endlessly through trees and fields, where you can drive for miles without seeing another car. That night, she had stayed late at work. It was past midnight when she turned onto the highway. No streetlights, no radio, just darkness and the soft hum of tires on asphalt. She remembers feeling watched, not in a dramatic way, not fear, just a subtle awareness, like the road itself was paying attention. Then the headlights appeared. Too fast, too close. Metal screamed. Glass exploded. The impact spun her car sideways. When everything finally stopped, there was only silence. Hannah sat there shaking for several seconds before she realized she was alive. Then she heard it. A sound. Not a scream, but something weaker. A broken breath. She stepped out of her car and followed the sound to the wreck on the other side of the road. Another vehicle, crushed against a tree. Inside was a man. His body was twisted unnaturally. Blood soaked his shirt. His eyes were open, unfocused, but still alive. Hannah called emergency services immediately. Then she crawled into the wreckage. She held his hand. "It's okay," she told him. "Help is coming. You're not alone." His grip tightened around her fingers. Too tight. His eyes locked onto her face. And for a moment, Hannah felt something strange. Not gratitude, not fear. Recognition. As if he were memorizing her. The ambulance arrived too late. The man died before they reached the hospital. Hannah gave her statement, went home, and tried to sleep. She believed that chapter of her life had ended. She was wrong. The dreams began a week later. At first, they were harmless. She dreamed of standing on that empty road, alone, the night wind brushing against her skin. Then she began to sense someone behind her, breathing close. She would wake up before turning around, her heart racing, her sheets damp with sweat. Then the dreams changed. The road disappeared. She was in her bedroom, her real bedroom. Everything was exactly as it should be, except she couldn't move. Her body felt heavy, pinned, as if an unseen weight pressed down on her chest. And then, arms wrapped around her, strong, possessive, not rough, but certain. In the dream, a man lay beside her. His body felt warm, solid, but when she tried to see his face, there was nothing. Just a smooth, empty shadow where features should have been. "You stayed with me," the man whispered. "You didn't leave." His voice was calm, intimate, like that of a lover. Hannah tried to scream. Nothing came out. The man held her closer. "You're mine," he said softly. "You were the last thing I saw." She woke up screaming. Her body ached. Her heart pounded, and the sheets were twisted, as if someone else had been there. The dreams returned every night. Always the same. Always closer. Always more real. Sometimes she woke up feeling fingers still wrapped around her wrist. Sometimes she woke up crying, without knowing why. When Hannah tried to date, something always went wrong. Men grew uncomfortable around her. Arguments started without reason. One man confessed that he felt angry whenever he touched her, though he couldn't explain why. Another said he dreamed of a faceless figure watching them from the corner of the room. They all left, and each time someone left, the dreams became worse. The man grew jealous. "You don't need them," he whispered. "I'm already here." Hannah told her family. At first, they thought it was stress, trauma, guilt from the accident. They took her to churches. Pastors prayed over her. They told her to forgive herself, to let go, to move on. The dreams didn't stop. They took her to spiritual healers, psychics, people who claimed to communicate with the dead. Every one of them said the same thing. The man didn't leave. He followed you home. He died holding on to you, and he doesn't know how to let go. One woman refused to continue the session. Another told Hannah she was being claimed. A third warned her never to sleep alone. "He thinks I belong to him," Hannah said, her voice barely audible as she finished her story. "He won't let anyone else touch me or love me." The medium nodded slowly. "He remembers your kindness," he said. "But spirits don't understand kindness the way we do. To him, you were not mercy. You were connection." As Hannah spoke, I felt it. A pressure in the room. A heaviness. The air seemed thick, unmoving, as if we were all underwater. The lights flickered again. Just once. Hannah flinched. "He's here," she whispered. "He always is." No one laughed. No one doubted her. Because in that moment, every one of us felt it too. That sense that we were no longer alone. That something unseen was listening, watching, standing far too close behind her. And somewhere, deep in the dark, a memory stirred. After that night, Hannah was never the same at work again. Or perhaps, she had never truly been the same at all. We simply hadn't noticed before. She started arriving earlier than everyone else. She said she liked the quiet. But I noticed something else. She chose desks with her back against the wall. She avoided elevators if she was alone. She flinched whenever someone stood behind her, even accidentally. Once, a coworker tapped her shoulder from behind. Hannah screamed. Not a startled gasp. A full, panicked scream, sharp enough to freeze the entire office. She apologized afterward, over and over, her hands shaking so badly she could barely hold her coffee. "I thought," she said softly, then stopped. She didn't finish the sentence. At night, The dreams changed again. They were no longer confined to sleep. Hannah told me this weeks later, in a voice so calm it frightened me more than panic ever could. "He doesn't wait until I'm asleep anymore," she said. "He knows when I'm awake." It began with pressure, a familiar weight on her chest, like someone leaning over her, breathing down into her lungs. Then came the touches, a hand sliding along her arm while she brushed her teeth, fingers resting on her waist as she stood at the stove, a presence lying beside her while she stared at the ceiling, eyes wide open. She stopped turning on the lights at night, because sometimes the lights went out on their own. "He gets angry," Hannah said, "when I ignore him." She showed me bruises on her thighs, fingerprints, faint but unmistakable. She had woken up with them. She lived alone. At work, things escalated. Printers jammed when she approached. Her computer shut down without warning. Documents vanished from her screen, reappearing moments later. Once, while sitting in a meeting room alone, Hannah heard a chair scrape across the floor behind her. Slowly, deliberately. She didn't turn around. She couldn't. She said she could feel him smiling. The medium explained it later. "When a spirit realizes it can be felt," he said. "When it realizes it can still touch, still influence, it grows bold. It stops pretending." Hannah's health declined rapidly. Dark circles hollowed her eyes. Her weight dropped. Her hands trembled constantly. She stopped laughing altogether. Sometimes, she stopped speaking mid-sentence, her gaze drifting to an empty corner of the room, her lips moving slightly, as if responding to someone we couldn't hear. When asked if she was okay, she always nodded. But her eyes said otherwise. Her eyes said she was being watched. One evening, she stayed late to finish a project. Everyone else had gone home. I was about to leave when I noticed her still sitting at her desk, unmoving. "Hannah?" I asked. She didn't respond. I stepped closer. Her chair was turned slightly, angled away from the desk, as if someone else had repositioned it. "Hannah," I said again. She blinked, slowly, and looked at me. "He doesn't like you standing that close," she whispered. My stomach dropped. "I'm sorry," she said quickly. "He gets jealous when other people notice me." I stepped back. The air around her felt wrong, heavy, charged, as if something invisible stood between us, listening. That night, Hannah tried to leave the apartment. She packed a bag, determined to stay with her sister for a few days. She made it to the front door. The lock turned on its own. The door slammed shut. She felt arms wrap around her from behind, pulling her back. "You promised you wouldn't leave," a voice whispered. Not in her head, in her ear. She collapsed to the floor, sobbing, begging. The voice softened. "I just want you here," it said. "I kept you alive, didn't I?" From that moment on, Hannah stopped resisting. She stopped trying to date, stopped making plans, stopped imagining a future. Because every time she did, something went wrong. Every time she thought of another life, the pressure returned. The dreams intensified, growing longer, more vivid. He no longer hid his presence. He spoke to her openly. He called her by name. "I loved you before you loved me," he told her. "You were there when no one else was." "He doesn't understand," Hannah said quietly, "that I didn't choose him." "But he believes she did," the medium replied. "And belief is powerful, even in death." By late 2018, Hannah was no longer living. She was enduring. Her days blurred together. Her nights were endless. Sleep became dangerous, but staying awake was worse. Sometimes she scratched her own arms until they bled, just to feel something that wasn't him. Sometimes she whispered apologies into empty rooms. Sometimes she screamed. And sometimes she lay perfectly still, listening, waiting, as if hoping he would finally speak again. Then something changed. The spirit grew restless, possessive, paranoid. He began to follow her outside. Streetlights flickered as she passed beneath them. Strangers avoided her gaze. Children cried when she walked by. Once, a man on the street shouted at her, "Tell him to leave me alone." He didn't know why he said it, but he felt it. The medium's voice was grim. "He's anchoring himself to her fully now," he said. "If she stays, this will end badly. Either he will consume her, or she will disappear into him." That was when Hannah made her decision. A desperate one. A final gamble. If the bond could not be broken here, she would run. Across oceans. Across continents. Across belief itself. She would leave the country. She would leave everything behind. And maybe, just maybe, he would lose her. She was wrong. Hannah left the United States in early 2019. She didn't say goodbye to many people. No farewell party. No long explanations. Just quiet paperwork, a signed contract, and a single sentence spoken with forced calm. "I'm going to Thailand." Most of us assumed she needed a fresh start. A new country. A new culture. A new life. We didn't understand that she wasn't chasing opportunity. She was running. The night before her flight, Hannah didn't sleep. She sat on the edge of her bed, suitcase packed, passport resting on the table like proof that escape was real, tangible. The apartment was silent. Too silent. Then, she felt it. That familiar pressure behind her eyes. That subtle tightening in her chest. "You're leaving," a voice said calmly. Not angry. Not surprised. Certain. Hannah didn't turn around. "I have to," she whispered. "I can't breathe anymore." There was a pause. Then, laughter. Soft. Intimate. "You can go anywhere you want," the voice said. "But I was there when you crossed the line between life and death. You don't get to leave me behind." On the plane, Hannah sat rigid in her seat. She didn't sleep. She couldn't. Every time she closed her eyes, she felt him beside her, pressed too close, his presence folding into hers. When turbulence shook the plane, she heard him whisper, "Careful," as if he were protecting her, as if he belonged there. Thailand was overwhelming at first. Heat, color, noise. For a brief moment, Hannah believed it might work. She moved into a small apartment provided by the labor program. Bright walls, open windows, sunlight everywhere. She told herself darkness couldn't follow her here. She was wrong. The first night, nothing happened. No dreams. No pressure. No whispers. Hannah cried herself to sleep, relieved, exhausted, hopeful. The second night, she felt it again. A presence at the foot of the bed. Not touching, just watching, waiting. She lay frozen, heart pounding, listening to her own breath. "You really thought this would work?" the voice asked gently. Her body went cold. From that moment on, the spirit changed. He was no longer desperate, no longer afraid of losing her. Now, he was confident. "I followed you across water," he whispered. "You belong to me everywhere." The dreams returned, sharper, clearer. He no longer appeared faceless. Now, Hannah could almost see him. A silhouette, broad shoulders, the suggestion of eyes where eyes should be, but never fully formed, never human. Her co-workers in Thailand noticed the change quickly. At first, Hannah tried to smile, tried to be friendly, tried to appear normal, but the exhaustion returned. The shadows under her eyes deepened. She avoided mirrors again. She avoided sleeping. She avoided being alone, but also avoided people. Because when she stood near others, she could feel his anger coil inside her chest. Once, while laughing with a coworker during lunch, Hannah suddenly felt fingers dig painfully into her side. Invisible, possessive, a warning. She gasped, clutched her ribs, excused herself. In the bathroom, she found red marks blooming across her skin. Slowly, deliberately, as if someone were pressing fingers into her flesh from the inside. The spirit began to speak more often. During showers, during meals, during moments of weakness. He reminded her of the accident, of his final breath, of her hand holding his. "You promised I wasn't alone," he said. "You don't get to change your mind." Hannah sought help again. Temples, monks, spiritual practitioners. Some refused to see her after a single glance. Others tried rituals that failed within hours. One monk shook his head grimly. "This is not attachment," he said. "This is possession by consent, even if you don't remember giving it." That word terrified her. Consent. Because somewhere, deep in her memory, she remembered saying something that night on the road. "It's okay," she had told the dying man. "I'm here." She had meant comfort. He had heard promise. The spirit grew bolder. One night, Hannah woke up unable to breathe. Not pressure, not weight. Hands. Invisible hands around her throat. She thrashed, gasped, begged. "Stop," she cried. "Please." The hands loosened. "I just need to know you're still mine," he said calmly. "I get scared when you forget." By mid-2019, Hannah was unraveling. She stopped eating regularly, stopped sleeping entirely some nights. She began whispering responses to voices no one else heard. Sometimes she laughed softly at nothing, then immediately covered her mouth, terrified she had angered him. Her reflection no longer felt like her own. She avoided eye contact with herself, because sometimes she saw movement behind her eyes. One evening, while walking home from work, Hannah passed a small spiritual shop tucked between two buildings. Candles burned in the window. Symbols she didn't recognize lined the door. She felt it immediately. Resistance. The spirit recoiled. "Don't go in there," he hissed. "They don't understand us." For the first time in years, Hannah felt something different. Not fear. Hope. She stepped toward the door. The pressure in her chest intensified. Pain bloomed behind her eyes. "You don't need them," the voice pleaded now. "I've taken care of you." She pushed the door open anyway. A bell chimed. Inside, an elderly man looked up. He met Hannah's eyes and frowned, not in confusion, in recognition. "You are not alone," he said softly. "And what follows you is very old and very hungry." The spirit screamed inside her, not out loud, but Hannah felt it tear through her thoughts, thrashing, furious. She collapsed to her knees. For the first time, the spirit was afraid. The man knelt beside her. "There is a way," he said calmly, "but it will hurt. It will fight, and it will not leave quietly." Hannah looked up, tears streaming down her face. "I don't care," she whispered. "Just make it stop." Behind her eyes, something watched. Something that had crossed oceans for her. Something that had no intention of letting go. The old man closed the shop door and turned the sign to closed. The bell stopped ringing. Outside, the street noise faded, as if the world itself had taken a step back. Inside the room, the air felt heavier, thicker, like breathing through water. Hannah sat on the floor, her knees pulled to her chest, trembling. Her heart hammered so hard she thought it might break her ribs. The spirit inside her was not silent anymore. It thrashed, not with words, but with sensation. A rising pressure behind her eyes, a tightness coiling around her lungs, a sharp, animal fear she had never felt before. "He doesn't want this," Hannah whispered. The old man nodded slowly. "Of course not," he said. "He knows what this place means." The ritual began after midnight. Candles were placed in a wide circle across the floor, each one marked with symbols Hannah didn't recognize. The light they cast was uneven, trembling, as if something unseen were breathing against the flames. Incense filled the room with a bitter, metallic scent that burned the back of her throat. The old man instructed Hannah to sit at the center of the circle. As soon as she did, the spirit reacted. Pain shot through her spine. Her hands clenched into fists so tight her nails drew blood. "Get up," the voice inside her hissed. "He's lying to you." The old man knelt in front of her. "You must listen to me," he said calmly. "Whatever you hear, whatever you feel, do not respond to him." Hannah nodded weakly. The chanting began. Low, slow. Each word struck the air like a hammer. The temperature dropped. The candle flames bent sideways, as if pushed by invisible wind. Hannah felt it then. Hands, not around her, but inside her, gripping, clawing, trying to pull something loose. "You said you wouldn't leave," the voice cried. "You promised." Hannah's vision blurred. Memories flooded her mind. The accident, the road, the dying man's eyes locking onto hers. His hand tightening around hers. "You stayed," he whispered. "You stayed when everyone else left me." Tears streamed down her face. "I didn't mean this," she sobbed. "I didn't choose you." The chanting grew louder. The old man raised his voice. Symbols on the floor began to glow faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat. The spirit screamed, not with sound, but with emotion, rage, fear. desperation. "You'll kill me," it howled. "I'll be alone again." Hannah's chest tightened painfully. For a moment, she almost stopped the ritual, because part of her still remembered the man dying on that road, still remembered the loneliness in his eyes, still remembered the weight of his hand in hers. The old man slammed his staff against the floor. "You are not responsible for his death," he said sharply. "And you are not his afterlife." The room shook. The candles flared violently. Something invisible slammed against the barrier of the circle. Hannah felt herself being pulled backward, her consciousness stretching, thinning, as if she were being dragged out of her own body. The voice changed, no longer pleading, now furious. "If I can't have you," it snarled, "no one will." The pressure around her throat tightened. Hannah gasped, choking, clawing at nothing. The old man shouted a final command. The symbols erupted in blinding light. The air screamed. A soundless explosion tore through the room. Hannah felt something rip free from her chest. Not gently, not cleanly. It felt like losing a limb. She screamed. The spirit screamed louder. For a fraction of a second, Hannah saw him, not faceless, not shadowed. A man, broken, twisted, eyes burning with obsession and terror. He reached for her, and then the circle snapped shut. The candles extinguished all at once. Darkness swallowed the room. Silence followed. Heavy, absolute. When Hannah woke up, it was morning. Sunlight streamed through the windows. Birds chirped outside. Her body ached, but the pressure was gone. The noise was gone. The constant presence gone. She sat up slowly, afraid to breathe too deeply, afraid to listen. Nothing answered. No whisper. No weight. No voice claiming her. The old man sat nearby, exhausted. "It's sealed," he said quietly. "Not destroyed, but bound. He can no longer reach you." Hannah covered her face and cried. Not from fear, from relief. The days that followed felt unreal. She slept, deeply, dreamlessly. For the first time in years, her nights were empty. No shadows, no hands, no voice. She laughed again, tentatively at first, like someone relearning how. Her co-workers noticed immediately. The tension in her shoulders faded. Her eyes brightened. She stood taller, alive. But the old man warned her. "Some bonds leave scars," he said. "He may be sealed, but the memory remains. Do not invite the past back in." Hannah nodded. She promised. Weeks later, while packing to move into a new apartment, Hannah found something strange. A bruise. Faint. Old. Shaped like a hand. She stared at it for a long time. It didn't hurt. It didn't move. It faded within hours. Still, she slept with the lights on that night, just in case. Because even sealed spirits remember, and even broken bonds sometimes ache. For a long time after the ritual, Hannah believed it was over, not because she trusted it completely, but because silence had returned. Real silence. The kind that doesn't press against your ears. The kind that doesn't breathe back when you breathe. She moved into a new apartment on the other side of the city. A smaller place. Bright walls. large windows. Every morning, sunlight poured in like a promise. Hannah slept with the windows open. She let the air move freely. For the first time in years, she didn't wake up bracing herself for touch. She slept deeply. She dreamed of ordinary things. Crowded streets, warm food, laughter that didn't echo into darkness. When she woke, nothing followed her out of sleep. No whisper, no pressure, no name spoken behind her ear. Her co-workers noticed the transformation immediately. Hannah laughed now, not nervously, not politely, but openly, sometimes loudly, surprised by the sound of her own voice. She stayed late at work without fear. She stood in elevators alone. She let people stand close to her. Sometimes she even forgot, just for a moment, that she had ever been afraid. Months passed. Life settled into something almost normal. Hannah went out with friends. She walked crowded streets at night. She even allowed herself to think about dating again, carefully, slowly, as if approaching something fragile. But healing is not erasure. It's learning how to live with what remains. And some nights, Hannah still woke suddenly, heart racing, certain that something had shifted in the room. Nothing ever had. But the feeling lingered, like a scar aching when the weather changes. She returned to the spiritual master once, months later, just to be sure. He listened quietly, then nodded. "The seal holds," he said. "But remember this. Not all endings are departures. Some are doors, closed from one side." Hannah didn't ask what he meant. Part of her already knew. Years later, back in the United States, I heard from her again. She had returned home quietly. No announcement, no explanation. She had taken a new job, built a new life. She sounded happy, truly happy. She spoke of simple things, work, travel, food she loved. She avoided the past. I didn't press. Then one night, she told me something she hadn't told anyone else. "I still don't sleep in complete darkness," she said. I asked why. She laughed softly. "I don't know," she replied. "It just feels safer." She told me that sometimes, when she's half asleep, caught between dreaming and waking, she feels it. Not a touch, not a voice, just awareness. Like standing near deep water, knowing something is below the surface, unmoving, listening, waiting. "I don't think he can reach me anymore," Hannah said. "But I don't think he forgot me either." The line went quiet. I didn't know what to say. Neither did she. Years passed. Life moved on. The story faded, became something I thought about less and less. Until one night, long after Hannah had disappeared from my daily thoughts, I dreamed. I stood on an empty road. No streetlights, no wind, no sound. A car lay crushed against a tree, and someone was breathing behind me. Slow, patient. I turned and saw nothing, but I woke with the unmistakable feeling that I had been recognized. I never told Hannah about that dream. Some things, once spoken, invite attention. Because spirits don't move the way we do. They don't travel with bodies. They move through memory, through story, through being remembered. Hannah lived. She survived. She reclaimed her life. That part is true. But there is something else that is also true. Something the spiritual master warned about, and Hannah understood instinctively. When someone dies holding on to you, when they anchor themselves in your final kindness, they may be sealed, they may be bound, but they are never truly gone. They wait, not in rooms, not in dreams, but in the quiet moments when you forget to guard your thoughts. So if you ever feel, for no reason at all, that sudden awareness, that sensation of being noticed, especially when you are alone, especially when you are kind to a stranger on an empty road, pause, listen, and remember this story. Because some spirits don't want revenge. They don't want blood. They want belonging. And once they choose you, they listen. Even now,